Chapter 413 Loving One Another Wholeheartedly. Mu Nujiao turned around, blushing, and glared at I-Tutu, who had given him the rotten idea. She snapped furiously, "Stop talking rubbish. Who would want someone like him who only knows how to stir up trouble? It would be a relief if he didn't ruin our clan's reputation." I-Tutu quickly leaned closer to Mo Fan when she saw Mu Nujiao trying to justify herself. She whispered with an evil grin, "Demon King, did you notice? Since you've come back alive, Sister Mu has been deriding and giving you lots of caustic remarks. I've never seen her treat any man like this. If she didn't actually hate you, she must have fallen in love with you. I did mention the Mu clan's son-in-law, but I never said she would be marrying you. The Mu clan has many daughters." Mo Fan quickly nodded after hearing I-Tutu's explanation. Mu Nujiao blushed even more. She never thought the two would collude to set her up. She turned around, not willing to speak to them, while trying to escape from the awkward situation. "Well, I guess your sacrifice to save her life is working pretty well," said I-Tutu. Mo Fan nodded heavily, before asking with a stern look, "If I'm going to marry her to become their son-in-law, I'll go even if they aren't offering me any equipment." I-Tutu rolled her eyes at him and rebuked, "In your dreams. With Sister Mu's value, their clan would surely want a young advanced magician, who also needs to have a high chance of achieving the super level. An intermediate magician like you, who doesn't even have a formidable background, could only marry with an uglier, and less important daughter from one of their side families. Besides, to marry the daughter of a renowned clan, you probably need to fill this room up with high-quality equipment. There's no way they would give you equipment. So what you're implying is that even if I were to join a renowned clan, I will most likely end up as a butler, who has to obey the commands of their pampered sons and daughters. Sigh, such an evil-class society. Why don't they look at our wholehearted love toward one another? Why can't they let go of their feudalism for once?" exclaimed Mo Fan as he raised his head. I-Tutu burst out laughing while hugging her stomach when she heard this. Mu Nujiao, who was on the balcony, could not stay any longer. She initially thought Mo Fan would reflect upon himself when discussing such a serious topic, as it would serve as a great blow to his dignity, yet he was as shameless as usual. Who the hell loved him wholeheartedly? Mu Nujiao quickly went back to her room, to avoid falling into their hands again. That I-Tutu deserved a beating. When they agreed to rent the place together, she had promised that they would stand against the smug Demon King together, yet she had been colluding with him. Lately, her eyes would glisten whenever she heard news related to the Demon King. At this rate, maybe her I-Clan would take the initiative to recruit him as their son-in-law. As the date of the challenges approached, Mo Fan had spent most of his time cultivating to prepare for the battles. He did not even have extra time to get his armor sorted out. Whenever he went for a meal, he would see people taking pictures of him with their phones, before muttering something like, "We shall catch the Fire School's Zhao Rishan alive," under their breaths. TL note, Zhao Rishan is a meme figure from a parody song, "My Name is Zhao Rishan." It's quite complicated to explain the origin, but basically, just think of someone who has done lots of evil deeds. Mo Fan was now referred to as the Fire School's Zhao Rishan. The whole school was well aware of his arrogance and scornful attitude. His rate of becoming famous totally outmatched the attention-seekers who desired their names to be listed on the school's leaderboard. However, Mo Fan was the first to disagree. Which idiot gave him such a weak nickname? Wait and see, in less than a month, the students of Pearl Institute would know that the infamous Demon King had returned. Afternoon, Mo Fan had just come back from the training ground. The training ground was fairly helpful. Not only did it provide targets that moved on their own for the students to train their accuracy, it also had a small magic platform in the corner, where the students could replenish their energy quickly. The replenishment of energy required a significant amount of time, yet it would deplete fairly quickly when the students were practicing their spells. Therefore, the magic platform provided at the training ground greatly boosted the students' efficiency. That being said, the training ground was only open to the top 300 students. The others were only permitted to use the ordinary training grounds. Those who were ranked even lower could not use the training grounds with moving targets. The special facilities were only available to those ranked highly on the leaderboard. Those ranked lower had no choice but to keep on challenging the students that were stronger if they were eager to have more resources and access to facilities. After training at the school for the past few days, Mo Fan finally understood why those with low ranks were so keen to challenge him. Leaving the resources aside, even the access to the different facilities was tied to the student's ranking, too. Mo Fan began to feel a headache again as soon as he left the training ground. He had learned how useful the 100th rank was to him, thus he was reluctant to give it up. However, too many people were trying to challenge him. His energy alone was nowhere sufficient to last until he finished all the challenges. How could he possibly keep his ranking? While walking on the street, a fairly weak-looking male student bumped into his chest around a corner. Sorry, I didn't mean to," said the weak-looking student. Mo Fan was confused. He was actually at fault since he was too immersed in his thoughts, but the person kept on apologizing. Mo Fan subconsciously assumed the student to be timid. "Aren't you Zheng Jiawei?" Mo Fan recognized the student with the lowest rank. Zheng Jiawei raised his head and saw the infamous Mo Fan. His face immediately turned pale. He responded with a stammering voice, Why is it, you? I should stay away from you." Mo Fan's eyes glistened when he saw Zheng Jiawei. He quickly grabbed his hand and smilingly said, "What are you afraid of? They are already looking down on you. You're no different than me, the public enemy of the whole element. I know that the trash you were describing was me. I admit that I'm the weakest, but I don't dare to offend the teacher or challenge the students," said Zheng Jiawei in a soft tone. Mo Fan patted heavily on the kid's back and said, "So do you want to stop yourselves from ranking last? I do agree that it's quite humiliating. Forget it, I've been the last for half a year. Once I finish this year, I'll leave Pearl Institute," said Zheng Jiawei. "Don't give up on yourself. Help me with a favor, and not only will I guarantee you resources that you could ever dream of, I'll also help you to get out of the last rank. As a reward, I'll also lend you the nebula tool that is given to the 100th rank." "How's that?" said Mo Fan with gleaming eyes. When he saw the last ranked of the fire school, Zheng Jiawei, he immediately came up with an idea. Chapter 414 The Challenge Week. Zheng Jiawei looked at Mo Fan in disbelief. In his eyes, a good nebula tool would only be given to someone strong who had put in a lot of effort. It was incredibly precious. He never thought someone would lend something so precious to him. His eyes stared at Mo Fan for a while, before he shook his head and said, "Don't play a joke on me. I'm on my way to the training ground for practice. Where is your resolution? You are already ranked last in the fire school. What's the point of being so hard-working? You're a disgrace to the term dunce," said Mo Fan. "If I don't work hard enough, I won't have any chance to defeat the people ranked higher than me," said Zheng Jiawei with a stern look. "I'll make it clear, your problem is not because of your cultivation. What you lack are resources. Everyone is the same when they first enrolled into Pearl Institute. We are all intermediate magicians. If you really want to compare, the difference between those ranked after 1,000th is negligible. I'm sure that you're only ranked last because you completely forgot how to cast your spell in a duel." "Why do you know that?" asked Zheng Jiawei. Mo Fan had no intention to waste his time anymore with this Zheng Jiawei. He took out the nebula tool given to the 100th rank student and shoved it into Zheng Jiawei's hands. Zheng Jiawei stared at the nebula tool for quite a while. He could not understand why someone would give their nebula tool to someone else. Time gradually passed. The challenge week had arrived. The people of the fire school were rubbing their palms, as they could not wait to teach the asshole who scolded them a lesson. The students of the fire school had all gathered in the main hall. They would glance in Mo Fan's direction at times. As a matter of fact, they were quite surprised when they saw Mo Fan in the hall. Was he really not afraid of being targeted by everyone? Mo Fan was seated at the same spot behind Huang Xingli and Ding Yuming. Unfortunately, he still did not have the chance to look at the appearance of the fire school's goddess. Huang Xingli turned around with a surprised look and said, "Are you really so tired of living? Today is the first day of the challenge week. Anyone who is ranked lower than you will challenge you to a duel for sure, and you have no choice but to accept them, unless you're willing to hand over your resources. Many people have set their eyes on your resources. Are you out of your mind? It's only our second time meeting one another. You don't have to be so concerned about me," teased Mo Fan. "Psycho!" Huang Xingli turned her head around. Wei Rong stood on the stage as usual. He managed to find Mo Fan among the crowd fairly quickly. He was wearing a grin. He could not wait to see how smug the kid would be today. "I have the list of names for the challenges that were sent out over the week. They are effective as long as the duels are taking place on the ring here. I believe everyone is well aware of the rules, so I won't be saying much." "Let's begin," said Wei Rong. Every month, the people ranked fairly high on the leaderboard would purposely initiate conflict with one another, to attract a crowd to their duel. The only way for the disciples of the renowned clans to increase their reputation was through endless challenges. Unfortunately, those who were planning to use the challenges to increase their ranking and reputation at the same time had miscalculated, as Mo Fan had taken all the limelight for himself. The dueling ground Mo Fan was at was fully crowded with people. In order to let everyone witness his outstanding capabilities, the elemental director had specifically chosen a place with a capacity of over 1,000 people. With that in mind, the place was almost fully seated with people. The students from the fire school had taken half the spots, while the rest were taken by the students from the other elements. Wei Rong stood at the spot for the judge. He was here solely to see how his students would beat the crap out of the disdainful kid. Crushing a student's arrogant pride was something that Wei Rong had done a lot in the school. I have the list of names for the challenges. They were sent out over the week. They are effective as long as the duels are taking place on the ring here. I believe everyone is well aware of the rules, so I won't be saying much. Let's begin, said Wei Rong. The 100th ranked student, Mo Fan, 231 people have challenged you this week. Kid, if you come up to me and apologize, write a repentance letter, and apologize to everyone from the fire school, I'll let you go, considering you've just transferred here. I won't need it, said Mo Fan with a firm attitude. Fine. First challenger, Zhang Yuhei, ranked 736th. Wei Rong knew that Mo Fan would not accept his condition. Following his call, a man with a slightly slanted nose stepped forward from the preparation area. He was wearing a bright smile, whose gaze was scanning the surroundings, as if he was telling the crowd that he was the luckiest person at this moment. The dueling ground was almost the size of a soccer field. It was also covered in green grass. Do you have any idea how many people are jealous of you? We've fought so hard just to get more resources, yet you've gotten them by pulling a trick with words. Unfortunately, the resources you acquired every month can be taken away when you lose the duels. Now, hand over the resources that do not belong to you. You might be able to save yourself some healing fees, said Zhang Yuhei. Wei Rong glanced at the two students on the dueling ground and said, Mo Fan, for your information, Zhang Yuhei, who's ranked 736th, might be one of the trashy students you mentioned before. If you can't even beat him, then you will accept my conditions, or leave the fire school yourself. I'll admit that there might be some trash in my fire school, but it doesn't welcome a student who's both useless and shameless at the same time, like you. Mo Fan turned toward Wei Rong, who was provoking him with a smile. Mr. Wei, isn't it too early to say those words? Wei Rong responded with a cold smirk. Mo Fan shifted his focus back to his opponent, Zhang Yuhei. His opponent was ranked 736th, so he should not be too much of a problem to deal with. Wei Rong, what's the point of being sulky with a student? Not only did you place him at the 100th rank, but you also spread the news across the whole school, so everyone would just challenge him on the same day. Don't you think that even those ranked in the top 100 would have troubles preserving their energy? Said the teacher of the fire school with the white brows, who was in charge of teaching the materials class. White brows, you're going too easy on the students. Every student that managed to enroll into Pearl Institute has some level of pride. Besides, Dean Xiao personally transferred him to the fire element. He sure has an unimaginable background. He was used to being fawned upon by everyone around him, and he thinks he's unmatched because of his abundant resources. If I don't let him suffer a great fall here, he might die at the hands of the demon beasts because of his attitude, said Wei Rong, as if he were really concerned for the student. As a matter of fact, Wei Rong was actually angry at Mo Fan. He was only pretending to be concerned about Mo Fan's future, just so he had an excuse to teach him a lesson. How dare he condemn the fire school and his teaching method in front of the crowd? He was definitely tired of living. Chapter 415 The Challenge from the Weakest. The challenge begins now, Wei Rong declared without listening to Bai Mei's advice. The crowd immediately cheered. They enjoyed watching bustling scenes. Besides, Mo Fan had infuriated half of them. They wished they could take Zhang Yuhei's place so they could beat all of Mo Fan's teeth out. Zhang Yuhei's smile became brighter. He began to draw the stars while mocking Mo Fan's stupidity with a carefree tone. The stars swiftly formed a star pattern. Unfortunately, the smile on his face froze when he was halfway finished with casting the spell. How fast? How could this guy's casting speed be so fast? Zhang Yuhei was stunned. His eyes were fixed on the flames engulfing Mo Fan. Hot flames burned around Mo Fan, turning him into a fiery demon. The scorching heat spread to the surroundings with him as the center, sweeping at everyone's face. "Trash always talks too much," said Mo Fan disdainfully. The flames burned fiercely around his wrist. Wild flickers emitting blinding glows would appear at times. As he threw a punch, fire jetted out of Mo Fan's fist like a tiny volcano. The rolling flames turned into the shape of a fan as they journeyed through the air, landing on Zhang Yuhei. Zhang Yuhei was dumbfounded. He had only finished half of the star pattern. He desperately activated his defensive equipment. Unfortunately, his equipment was not enough to resist the blast. His whole person was engulfed in flames, as the blast knocked him flying. Zhang Yuhei's figure flew in an arc and slammed into the ground outside of the boundary. Scorch marks could be seen across his body. Zhang Yuhei's fire was only ordinary flames. It did not grant him any resistance to the fire element. When he was caught on fire, it immediately burned through a layer of skin. Such a trashy student, how could he possibly be ranked 736th? Mo Fan raised his fist and blew it like a cowboy, extinguishing the remaining ripples of fire. Mo Fan was directing his words toward Wei Rong. Since the gorilla teacher was picking on him, Mo Fan had no intention to back off. Wei Rong's lips contorted. Perhaps his lungs were expanding? "The kid is quite impressive," Bai Mei said with a smile. "Humph, that's all he got." "There are many people who can send Zhang Yuhei flying with a fiery fist in the fire school," said Wei Rong. Wei Rong never expected a single challenger alone was enough to deal with Mo Fan. A person who did not have many capabilities up their sleeves would not be so boastful. "I'll go ahead and heal him. It looks like it's going to be a long day for me," said Bai Mei as he walked toward the boundary of the dueling ground. "You're overestimating him." The next challenger went up. Mo Fan had long prepared for it. The second challenger was a female student ranked 645th. Her strength was not significantly greater than Zhang Yuhei, but she was fairly cautious. She knew Mo Fan's casting speed was outstanding, thus she took a defensive approach right at the start. "Fire and water elements, girl, aren't you being a little bit too contradicting?" Mo Fan ignited a puff of fire burst in his hand and adeptly aligned the stars. "Why do you care?" The girl was unyielding. Water like ribbons flowed around her. "If you're so keen on defense, why don't you go to the water school?" Mo Fan hurled the fire burst accurately at his opponent. The female student was casting the basic water spell, Water Barrier. Her water barrier had reached the 3rd tier. As long as she was not being attacked continuously, a new defensive barrier would appear close to her. Mo Fan was purposely teasing the girl. He was timing his fire burst perfectly, so that her water barrier could recover in time, yet she could not cast her attacking spell in time. "The kid is wasting his energy. He could easily defeat his opponent, yet he's doing this. I knew he was a proud, arrogant good-for-nothing," Wei Rong harumphed. He despised Mo Fan's method. A duel was a duel. How could he treat it like a joke? If he did the same against demon beasts, he would die a horrible death to creatures that were weaker than him. The 645th ranked student was no match for Mo Fan, after all. She was also aware that Mo Fan was only teasing her. She decided to forfeit the match and left the stage. Before she left, she even glared at the man who had made her into a joke in front of the school. "Next challenger. Toilet break please?" Mo Fan was indeed shameless. He was trying all possible reasons to delay the continuous challenges, just so he could replenish as much energy as possible. "What are you thinking now? If you were to delay the duels again, why don't you just concede?" snapped Wei Rong. "Why would I concede? It's just that I've eaten too much during my lunch." "Are you saying that I can't have a stomachache?" said Mo Fan in a righteous manner, although it was his 3rd time requesting to go to the restroom. At this time, Mo Fan had defeated 6 challengers. As the ranking of the challengers increased, it took Mo Fan more energy to defeat his opponent. He had already consumed a 1/3 of the energy of his fire nebula. It would soon deplete after he cast a few more intermediate spells. "Next one, Zheng Jiawei." Wei Rong frowned as soon as he read the name aloud. What is this last ranked student doing here? The challengers from before were all ranked relatively close to 500th, and it was clear that they were a lot weaker than Mo Fan. Zheng Jiawei could not even draw a star pattern correctly in a duel. Wasn't the outcome of the duel obvious? Zheng Jiawei looked timid as usual. It was his first time standing on the stage in front of such a great crowd. His figure was still trembling as he walked onto the stage. Mo Fan's eyes glistened when he saw him, as if he were his savior. The kid has not let him down. If his turn only came after the attempts from 200 challengers, wouldn't that mean he would have to defeat 200 people before him? Why is he the challenger? Ha ha ha. Is he really serious about trying to take advantage of the situation, just like those idiots who lost? Someone among the crowd burst into laughter. This Mo Fan is quite impressive. He had already defeated Zhao Pingjun, who's ranked 538th. This Zheng Jiawei is going to end up worse than Zhang Yuhei. I've fought that guy before. He challenged me to a duel in an aggressive manner, yet he could not even draw an intermediate star pattern during the fight. I was standing stationary waiting for him to attack, but he couldn't do it. It was such a joke. Why would the Pearl Institute's main campus accept this idiot? The fire school burst into laughter as soon as Zheng Jiawei went up to the stage. Why would he try to embarrass himself? He had wasted a precious chance for the other challengers to try their luck. Besides, the challengers after him were surely ranked in the top 500. Chapter 416 You've Made Me Mad. Wei Rong looked at Zheng Jiawei, who looked like an army deserter from a war, even if it were only a duel. He always found him to be a nuisance. If someone were actually trashy in the fire school, it would definitely be this Zheng Jiawei. Let's begin, start the battle now, said Wei Rong impatiently. Mo Fan stood in front of Zheng Jiawei. He let out a sigh when he saw that the guy almost shrank back completely due to his fear. What are you afraid of? It was only a show, or something has happened to you in the past that makes you afraid of dueling. No, nothing like that. I'm not afraid of duels. It's just, stammered Zheng Jiawei. Forget it. If you can't cast an intermediate spell, use some basic spells then. Don't tell me that you can't even align the 7 stars. If you were to defeat me with bare fists, it will be too fake of an act, Mo Fan said to Zheng Jiawei. Is this really fine? The students will look down on me, said Zheng Jiawei with slight hesitation. Mo Fan laughed when he heard the words, before saying to Zheng Jiawei, open your eyes and look at your surroundings. Including the teacher, do you see anyone treating you seriously? Even the girls who are fairly respectful toward everyone are looking at you pitifully. I don't know if you have anyone you're secretly in love with in the fire school, but if you happen to see a hint of pity, mockery, or no emotion from her eyes, don't you think that you're already in the worst possible situation? You've overestimated yourself. You thought you still had a last hint of dignity in the fire school, yet to the others, you're just a laughingstock. Zheng Jiawei glanced at Mo Fan. He initially thought Mo Fan was trying to lend him a hand, but his heart felt a chill when he heard the words. He tried to align the stars, but the nebula shattered in just a brief while. The crowd burst out laughing, leaving Zheng Jiawei utterly embarrassed. When he repeated the casting, he made a mistake when he was aligning the 4th star. Your cultivation isn't weak at all. Why are you so nervous that you can't even cast a spell? Honestly, I think you should stop being a magician. You will find yourself achieving better results when doing something else, Mo Fan jeered Zheng Jiawei. Zheng Jiawei pulled a long face when he heard this. His eyes glared at Mo Fan as he spoke in a slightly infuriated tone. What do you know about me? Oh, so you desire to be a magician? Mo Fan smiled. His words had obviously crossed this person's line. He had a desire to become a magician, yet he was so timid that he could not draw the stars correctly. At the training ground, he could align the stars fairly quickly. His strength was not weak, either, but he was so nervous in front of a crowd that he could not even produce the simplest nebula. Non-confident, timid. Mo Fan could even see the black cloth resembling how he was feeling inferior covering his entire figure. It was not like he had zero presence, but in the crowd's eyes, he was the greatest laughingstock. How was it possible for an intermediate magician to be so pitiful? However, this was only possible in the Pearl Institute's main campus, since being an intermediate magician was the lowest requirement to enroll. I have plenty of time. Take all the time you need to align the stars. Mo Fan was rather carefree. He simply stood there and waited patiently. Zheng Jiawei began to draw the stars again. He was desperately trying to overcome this fear in front of a crowd so that he could cast a spell. However, no matter how adept he was at the daily training, his mind turned blank when he stood in front of a crowd. Their laughter and disdainful gazes increased the burden on his shoulders when he was drawing the star pattern. Is this guy here just to enlighten us? He seriously can't even cast a basic spell. How does he even have the guts to take part in the duel? If I were him, I would simply find a spot and bury myself, cursed Zhao Ji. Go! Be gone! Stop wasting everyone's time. Stop treating him like that. He's only feeling nervous. Let's give him some more time, said a girl with a gentle voice. Those who were hot-tempered were already stirring a scene among the crowd. Most people were simply looking at him with a cold gaze on their seats, thinking that it was fairly hilarious. However, in order to highlight their fairly well-developed control, they did not display it on the surface. Zheng Jiawei, if you can't even cast a fire burst, you should just forfeit, Wei Rong said in a cold voice. Every second the kid stayed on the stage lost him more face. Most importantly, he could not let Mo Fan get what he wanted. Zheng Jiawei had gotten used to the mocking and being underestimated by the students. However, he panicked even more when he heard Wei Rong's words. He subconsciously treated the words as an order. He bit his lips and headed for the exit. Mo Fan immediately went up and grabbed his arm when he saw that something was not right. What are you doing? I should just give you back the nebula tool. I can't do it, Zheng Jiawei answered with a disappointed look. Not only are you timid, you're extremely selfish, too. You do know that we're currently on the same boat? You might feel better if you obey the inferior demon in your bones, but I'm in a terrible mess. If the duel only involves yourself, you can do whatever you want, but if you leave now, I would have to face all the challenges. Mo Fan said sternly while holding Zheng Jiawei's arm. Mo Fan's plan was very simple. He had asked the last-ranked student to challenge him, to whom he would lose the duel. Once Mo Fan became the last rank, no one would then be able to challenge him. After being ranked last, he would then challenge someone in the top 50 on the final day of the challenge. That way, he could easily prevent himself from being challenged one after one another, while still improving his monthly ranking. The plan was very simple, and its execution was not so difficult. Yet, to Mo Fan's surprise, he did not expect Zheng Jiawei to be so useless. He could not even cast a basic spell. The rules had stated that without casting any spell, even if the opponent conceded, he would not be deemed the winner. I didn't mean it, but I've tried. I really did. Sorry, Mo Fan. I know that you really want to help me, but I'm hopeless. Zheng Jiawei's voice was slightly trembling. He was on the verge of crying like a little girl. Mo Fan had learned how timid and weak a person could be. He glanced at Wei Rong, who had a grin on his face, before looking at the hopeless Zheng Jiawei. He realized that the elemental director had spoken the words on purpose. As a judge, he should not interfere with the duel, yet he was aware of Mo Fan's plan, so he had spoken to drive the obedient Zheng Jiawei away. Hold it right there. Mo Fan felt slightly angry. Zheng Jiawei turned around. As a matter of fact, he had already left the stage. You have indeed infuriated me. To put me in such a situation, very well, you're really the most useless person I've ever seen. You've left me here, leaving me no choice but to fight against 200 people. Fine, open your eyes and watch carefully. If I, Mo Fan, am knocked down from the stage by anyone today, I'll fucking admit that I'm a coward just like you. I'll apologize to that gorilla elemental director, and to all the students I've condemned in the school. Mo Fan was utterly furious. He was not just angry about his situation, but more importantly, he was angry toward Zheng Jiawei, who assumed that everything would be fine after he withdrew from the duel. Those who ridiculed the weak were not the most hateful, but someone useless like Zheng Jiawei, who had lost himself in the midst of his inferior, self-closing, and totally obedient traits, could not even show some integrity. Mo Fan collected his thoughts after the furious speech. He glared at the elemental director, who was so respected by the students. Call out the name of the next challenger now,